What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, joined by my guy Morgan here. Morgan, we're here to recap a game that isn't going to be like very fun. Well, put it this way, it wouldn't have been fun if we had to recap the entire game, right? If we had to go from beginning to end, this would not be a fun film study. But fortunately for us, we get to pick the plays that we want to break down and get to, take a look at. We got a couple fun ones, but before we get into that, I haven't, or at least the people haven't got to hear your take, your opinion on how the game ended. So I wanted to give you your opportunity to just wax poetically on how you're currently feeling and even just how you were feeling even in the moment of how the Lions game ended against the Cowboys.
Oh man, we talked for a long time before we got on, and I was getting over it because I'm just like, whatever, man. I was trying to get over it. I was really incensed in the moment, just like everybody else. They messed up. I'm not going to go on and on about it. It wasn't subjective. It was a procedural thing that I'm not even going to say his name. The head referee messed up. So at the end of the day, the NFL messed up. They're not owning up to it. Instead, they're doubling down, excuse me. We saw that video drop a couple hours before we got on here, and Jeremy, our producer at Pride of Detroit, wrote a nice article. You can go check it out. But yeah, man, I'm pretty bothered by it. But at the end of the day, I just hope this is like a big chip that everyone's going to wear on their shoulder from here on out. And I hope they whip the Vikings this weekend. I really do. I want blood.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that is like very unique about this situation is that we've seen the Lions get screwed over in the past. And we've seen that sometimes, really cripple them as they kind of go into the next game or into the rest of the season. Dan Campbell is a guy that I fully believe and I have full confidence in is going to have this team ready, not to just play the Vikings, but to go into the playoffs. And that like this is going to be something that's going to probably be posted up somewhere or probably multiple places across or around Allen Park that like, hey, we're not going to forget this moment. And like you said, the NFL is making it really easy for them not to forget, but it's like you're adding continuous fuel to this fire that I think this is a team that you don't want to have additional motivation. Um, this was a team that was already starting to, feel like, hey, we're starting to get a little bit of respect. We're starting to get people to really take us seriously. And then for that to happen, it's almost like, oh, okay, I see how it is. I can show you better than I can tell you type of situation. And that's the something I'm right there with you. I can't wait till the Lions get to that point in the playoffs where it's like, let's put the entire world on notice on just how good this team is.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, Miko. And yeah, it's disappointing that NFL's doubling down on it, but then we talked about it before we got on. I'm not surprised because instead of they said they're downgrading Brad Allen, I'll say the dummy's name,
Mm-hmm.
but instead now they have him on another primetime game this weekend, Steelers and Ravens, which is a big playoff implications game for the Steelers at least. And I really hope it bites them. I really do. I hope it bites them again in prime time, and then they got a whole bunch of egg on their face. That would be hilarious. Something I would really, really enjoy if
Yeah.
that happens. Oh man, that would be really nice. I'm being hateful, but I don't care. Uh,
No, man, I think at this point, like the way everybody in across, Lions Nation probably feels at this point, like, yeah, we're all pissed off about it. I think we would all like to move on from it, but like
we're trying to.
hope
Damn.
right, we are really literally trying to. And I think, this, like you're saying, the league doubling down on it is just making it 20 times worse.
Yeah, they got Jeremy pissed off, man. Jeremy doesn't really get mad. Um, you get him mad, you get me mad. That's whatever. You're that's a
Right.
dime a dozen. But you make Jeremy mad, you messed up. So
Oh,
the
dude,
NFL, the NFL's messed up.
it's listen, it's great in one sense because we get to see
Uh,
like you're saying,
yeah.
Jeremy showing a little bit more emotion or a little more frustration. I got a little more animated than I normally do, and just being like, but like you said, we're gonna spend one more day. We're gonna look at some film from the Cowboys game because like I said in my video, Morgan, right? There's the play at the end of the game. But let's not lose sight of the fact that the Lions made a number of like really good plays that put them in position to win this game. And that's kind of being overshadowed by just the nonsense that took place. So hopefully this film study will help a lot of people in that regard of just like, hey, we're going to take a look at some big time plays that really help this team and really showed how they can hang with the team of the caliber of the Cowboys, how they can really be true contenders in the NFC.
Yeah, and that's a really a lot. The long and short of the article, the little blurb I wrote for the Pride of Detroit Direct newsletter that we sent out shortly. I think it was the day after the game. Was that the Lions, even on their best day, hung around with a really good team. Like it or not, I hate the Cowboys. I hate the whole organization from top to bottom. Really, really at
Mm-hmm.
the top, if you know what I mean. And
Oh yeah,
they, and they hung around with them. They should have won. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not one to really just blame the referees flat out. A lot of the stuff is subjective, but like I said, this was procedural. It was at the very end of the game. Most likely would have ended in a Lions victory had it been called correctly. But yeah, on their not on their best day, and they really should have won this game still. And the cool part of it was the defense picked up the slack, because we were talking about it throughout the Cowboys film. The offense, 3 and out, negative play, negative play. It was a lot of ugly. Besides this beautiful shot here that we're gonna get into here to Waymo. I
yeah.
screamed Waymo when he did this.
Bro, same. Like, it's at the point where anytime Jameson Williams makes a play, I'm literally like, if the ball goes in his direction, I'm standing up because I just feel like something like big is going
Electric.
to happen. And this is his bread and butter, man. This is what he was drafted for. This is what we want, to kind of see as Lions fans, is Jared Goff standing in the pocket, making a really tough throw with Micah Parsons bearing down on him and hitting JMO in stride. I can't stress that enough. Hitting him in stride is so key for this play, Morgan.
Yeah, and it was an impressive throw from Goff. He was going to get drilled. I believe it was Parsons who came free late there and just came up the middle and got a good clean lick on Goff. But to his
Mm-hmm.
credit, Goff stood in there. He stepped into the throw, and he had to, right? Because he had JMO open, and JMO had to gear down a little bit, but it wasn't much, and still hit him in stride. And I really hope we don't see JMO pop up on the injury report tomorrow. I hope everything's copacetic with his ankle.
Yeah, I saw one of the Twitter docs kind of talking about he thinks it's a low ankle sprain based off of just like how it was taped and how JMO was kind of walking around. So I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping low ankle sprain,
Yeah,
or nothing, right? Like hope, like you're saying, hoping that he doesn't pop up on the injury report at all. But like this is prime JMO. And one thing I did want to point out in this play, one of the reasons JMO was able to get this wide open is that the safety on this play actually takes a step inside, which, basically gives JMO that one-on-one on the outside. And by the time he turns around, like, again, we've talked about this before so many times with Jameson Williams. If you're not there on time, you're just
you're
late.
late. Yep.
You'll always be late when it comes to Jameson Williams and that speed.
Yeah, because at that point he's already in top gear. And like you said, good concept. It draws the eyes of the safety just for an instant, and that's all JMO does. He starts out a little bit wide, gets a good clean release, and is able to bend it inside. And I hope they do more of this when they do take shots with JMO, because Goff is just more comfortable throwing to this part of the field than he is throwing out near the boundary, even deep. He'd rather just it be a little bit more towards the in between the hashes or just near them, right? So yeah, I hope there's more of this when they do take more shots to Jameson. And yeah, this is pretty, man. I could watch this on loop for quite a while.
Yeah, and I agree with you in that sense that, again, like, choosing to put JMO in more situations where he's in the middle of the field and not having to necessarily look over a shoulder, because I think that's where we've sometimes seen him struggle with some of these deeper routes, is when he's out on the boundary by himself with the sideline and he's trying to navigate the sideline and trying to determine which shoulder to look over on some of these routes. And this is the stuff, again, that he did really well at Alabama, when he doesn't have to guess where the ball is going to be and can kind of just look over his dominant shoulder, I'm assuming, and just kind of just be like, oh, okay, this is where the ball is, catch it, run. And dude, I loved his celebration afterwards. Like, that's the epitome
Whammo.
of JMO.
Yep. And to your point too, Miko, I like that route for that, all the reasons you just listed, because you give him so much more space and time to locate the ball and run under it, right? To use that all world speed that he possesses. So Yeah, I love that, man. That was I love the getting up and dancing. The only thing I didn't love was the ankle, but like you said, I'm hoping everything's cool there. He acted like it was fine.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, like,
yeah,
I know I saw again a tweet from one of the beat writers that he was, had a noticeable limp on the way out, but again, seeing him on the sideline, he didn't seem to be all that bothered by it. Like you said, he felt good enough to get up
right.
and dance. So, like, how bad
Right.
could it possibly be? But yeah, again,
Yeah.
hoping that if he's got to miss one game, fine, miss the Vikings game, but hopefully he's ready come playoff time.
Yep.
But one guy that was absolutely on and again picked the perfect time to again have what I considered his best performance of the season is Aidan Hutchinson. I feel like it's been a while since we've like had some Aidan highlights. We got all 3 sacks that he was able to pick up in this game, and I think they're all really good in their own respect. He really showcased the versatility that I think a lot of Lions fans and of course this team thought they were going to get when they drafted him last year.
Yeah, you're absolutely. And this is just a clean win against a really good tackle. Like Tyron Smith's getting up there in age, but he's had a really good year after a few up and down years, if I believe. Correct me if I'm
Mm-hmm.
wrong, Dallas fans, but he's been really good again this year. But yeah, this is a really good move from Hutch off the line of scrimmage, a little stutter step. And then he crosses Tyron Smith's face, and it's just a quick little double hand swipe, beats his hands, and that's all it is. Really nice, quick win. Like we talked about several weeks ago, Miko, we needed more of this from Hutch, more of the quick wins, and just beat him almost instantaneously. And he gave us quite a bit of that against Dallas.
Yeah, like you said, quick win, using his hands. I think that's always, and it will continue to be something that Hutch has to kind of really become more familiar with when it comes down to rushing the passer. Is again, like when you look at some of the best pass rushers in the league, typically them having good hands is kind of the thing that helps separate them. Yes, they can all be different sizes, they all have different levels of athleticism, but those that are consistently good know how to again optimize leverage or optimize hand usage. And that's exactly what we get here. And it's a really good pass rush by him. It's one of the more impressive ones that I think he's had all season.
Yeah, and it starts to show him like he's chaining moves together, right? Like he's rushing with a plan. Like, okay, I'm going to hit this stutter. I'm going to
Mhm.
cross his face, and if he tries to, get his initial punch on me, I'm going to swipe and see if I can't win really quick on the inside. And he did, and it looks like they talked about it beforehand too, because Bugs kind of works outside, almost like he's like covering that, for
Yeah.
Hutchinson. So good job by Bugs too of getting outside. So if Hutch did not finish on the inside move, it wouldn't burn the Lions. Hopefully, so yeah, that was nice. I hope we see more of that the next several weeks here as the Lions make their playoff push.
Yeah, and the next play that I want to have us look at is another sack from him, and this is something that I feel like we haven't seen as much, mainly due to the fact that the Lions haven't had as many options to rush on the outside. But it's Hutch in the middle, and I think like we talked about this back in Week 1 against the Chiefs. Like this is, I think, probably even up Hutch's most optimal, you know, position when it comes to rushing the passer because he has such a huge advantage over interior offensive linemen.
Yeah, and this is a cool. I like that this blitz that they drew up because Hutch is going to move from the three technique, and he's going to work inside to where he gets in a one-on-one with 63, the center.
Hmm.
Because he's clearing room. It's Anzalone and I believe it's Malcolm Rodriguez, both blitz. But yeah, he ends up whipping that center. And the quarterback to Prescott, not to his credit here, but he kind of just walks into trouble. And
Yeah.
yeah, Hutch ends up with sack number 2. But yeah, good rush again. And I like that they're mixing him up and moving him around just because, like you said, Miko, it makes it easier, especially when he's working against guards and centers.
Yeah, like I said, I think we talked about this before. He has such, his measurables are really impressive. Maybe not necessarily on the outside because he doesn't have those freakishly long arms, but on the inside, he's 9 times out of 10 going to be taller than any interior offensive lineman that he's going up against. He has really good weight as far as I think he's somewhere around like 275, 280. And then he can still be quicker than most of them. Like you said, like he has this a little bit of a loop where he goes from outside or in between the tackle and the guard to be able to get the center one on one. And even if they do try to they try to double him a little bit there, and he's just like, no, like I can split these two based off the momentum that he was already able to generate.
Yeah, and he's strong. He's like I said, for being a taller, like leaner defensive end, he does have a good bull. And yeah, to your point, that's where, especially on passing downs, as they get guys healthy, like the James Houstons, and you start doing that, I would love if they rotate Hutch inside more often than not and keep him at the 3 technique, let him work against centers because he's going to be overwhelm. He's going to be able to overwhelm those offensive linemen a lot easier than he would a tackle typically.
Yeah, and I think if you give him more opportunities to work on the inside, when you do finally put him back on the outside, it makes it easier for him to go back into that bag of tricks that you were talking about, Morgan, where he can start to mix up his pass rush a little bit more. And one of those moves is his spin move, and I feel like that's started to become his go-to move. And he still is on his way of perfecting it, I think. But this is as good as it gets when it comes down to hitting that move.
Yeah, and this is nice too because he set this up well. He had been beaten Steele up pretty well,
Mhm.
78, the right tackle, and he had been hitting him a lot with power, hitting him a lot with the bull, and attacking that outside shoulder. So you'll see 78. He opens his shoulders up almost, perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, right? So he's all the way open. And once Hutch sees that, he hits him with the okey doke, and just a really nice spin. And again, a really quick win. I'm sure Prescott was like, well, damn, how did you get here so fast? Like this is quick.
Yeah, and the thing I love about this, like you said, he sets it up really well where he actually even uses his outside hand to like attack, Steele's outside shoulder. So to make it look like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
going to use either long arm or power. And the minute he gets him, like you said, he opens up, it just immediately into that spin. And I think this is one of Hutch's best moves. He doesn't always hit it consistently because I think to that point, he doesn't always set it up well consistently. But this is one of the better setups. And if he's able to do this consistently, and if he's able to be more versatile in terms of where he's lined up along that defensive line, you can get more of these types of plays out of him. I mean, again, this was his first and I think only 3-sack game of the season, but it just shows the levels of his game and how much he has grown even from earlier in this season.
Yeah, Miko, and this is where I want to see. Like he's back to 9.5 sacks, I believe, on the season. So he's matched his rookie total. I just want to see this a little more consistently. Like when you are facing the Terrence Steeles of the world, no disrespect, but there should be more reps like this where it's a clean ass whooping. Excuse my language, but like this is what this is. Like you get a really good player, which I put Hutch in that category
Mhm.
right now, against a player that maybe or maybe not would be starting if the Cowboys had a better option at right tackle. And you need some clean wins like this because that's what you're expecting from your dominant players. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's kind of my thought process when you enter that category. Like I put St. Brown in the elite category, and I know we're going to get to him a little bit later, but when he's against a corner that shouldn't be guarding him, typically
Yeah.
we know it, right?
Yeah, and I think like I said, this was something that I think we talked about a little bit last week when we were previewing the Cowboys, is that Hutch had a really good game last year against Steele. Beat him for 2 sacks
Yeah,
last year, came back
true.
this year, and like you're saying, beat him for 2 more. Well, beat the team for 2 more, but got Steele for 1. So it's again showing that level of dominance, and at least 2 years in, it at least looks like Hutch has the Cowboys numbers in terms of how to beat that offensive line, to basically cause a little bit of havoc for Dak Prescott. Um, Another player though that again probably didn't have the most dominant game from beginning to end, but definitely started to cook in that second half is David Montgomery. And like we talked about, there weren't that many like dominating offensive plays, but this was one of the better ones and one of the better blocking performances by this offensive line.
Yeah, and despite all of the negative plays that the Lions had, and there were several, I didn't go through and chart it yet, but there were several. There were too many.
Mhm.
They still really did run the ball fairly well. It was 31 carries for 125, so they averaged 4 yards a pop. So they did run the ball fairly well. And then if you add in that the Jameer Gibbs long run that was taken away because of the holding penalty, they did okay. But yeah, this is good execution down in the red zone. I almost wish, man, that the Lions would have just handed the rock off for the first that first 2-point conversion, but we don't have to get into that now. But
Oh no,
yeah,
yeah.
good
Nah.
job. Panay and Graham fire out of their stances here. I know I have that in my notes, and they work down towards Frank, and they almost
Mhm.
they really do. There's no almost. They reset the line of scrimmage. So watch them here. This is a good view. So watch Graham and Panay. So they fire out of their line of scrimmages and excuse me, and immediately scrape working down the line of scrimmage towards Frank, and they just end up resetting that whole line of scrimmage and makes it pretty easy for Monty to get into the end zone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so Panay, Graham, and Frank take care of their side. Jonah struggles on this rep, and then you have Decker and Sam Laporte on the outside, basically taking care of Parsons and Curse there. And again, you get this easy lane, and this is what the Lions wanted to do. And I think if they had probably taken this approach earlier in the game, they might have seen a little more success in the running game. I think, like you were saying, the lapse that we were seeing in their run game was primarily when Jahmyr Gibbs was in, and with a lot of those delayed handoffs where they're trying to allow Jahmyr to use his vision and quickness to get open or to get bigger plays down the field, but it just wasn't really happening with the way Dallas was firing off the ball.
No, and we knew that Dallas's defense, was quicker than it was like this big mashing unit. So I do kind of wish, in retrospect, I know hindsight's always 2020, but I wish they'd have just ran more power, gotten a little bit more downhill, and stopped with some of the cutesy stuff. But to their credit too, to Ben Johnson, a lot of those runs have been where the Lions hit big when they run, a counter, when they run wham or trap, and there's a lot of moving parts. So it's like a toss up, right? Because we're saying that, but then a lot of the big runs that Jahmyr and Monty have broken off through this year have been a lot of those concepts, right, Meko?
Yeah, and I think when the game was like taking place, I was of the opinion, at least for the most part during that first half, where it's just like there were too many replays where I was seeing either Graham or Jonah or Sam just being late on pulls, where it's like, as much as I want to be upset about play calling, I also need to see guys being, moving with a more sense of urgency to be able to get those blocks done. And so like I said in my last video, I feel like there's a little bit of like chicken or the egg type of situation with the play calling offensively, where is it more of an issue with, the play calls, or is there more of an issue with the actual execution of it?
I think it was a mixed bag, right? Because there were several times that might stick out in my head, like a couple of Sam Laporta where he just wasn't over in time with some of those the wham stuff, right? Where he's moving across the line of scrimmage to pick up a defensive end or a linebacker. So that's what you guys see when the Lions are running those concepts, and there's a defender coming off the line of scrimmage off the edge, and it's a guard, it's Jonah Jackson, or it's Laporta, or sometimes it's even Amon-Ra St. Brown. They come over and they pick him up. They almost get him in the ear holes, what they call it. And yeah, a couple of times Dallas was just so fast and quick with their penetration, it was blown up. And I swear it happened like 6 or 7 times where I feel like it was Jahmyr several times, lost like 5 yards.
Yeah, it was primarily Jahmyr. And that's why, like, when you look at, like you said, they were as a team, they were able to rush for over 100 yards. But you start looking at Jahmyr's totals, I think he only averaged like 2.9 a carry, which
right, yeah,
off the top of my head has to probably be his worst performance of the season.
Definitely, Meko, because if I'm not mistaken, up until at least last week, Jahmyr led the NFL in yards per carry with like minimum 100 attempts, I believe. So yeah, just a couple of those. Well, I think it's a mixed bag. It's never one thing or the other, but I do think it's a mixed bag of play calling and down and distance, and then just execution too. So yeah, this is perfect execution. So really late in the game. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is as close as we're getting to the 2-point conversion, and it's the touchdown that the Lions got to basically pull within a field goal of tying the game. And this is really good by again, this is bread and butter Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yep, and this is the drive, like you said, Meko, the 2-minute the hurry up offense where they had to get down and score and get it within a point. And Khalif runs a good route, a little corner, and it holds the DB's eyes for just long enough. And good ball by Goff. It's on time and it's right where it needs to be. No wasted motion, and it gives St. Brown enough time to get it in. Man, I was so excited when they got this because I kind of knew. It's like almost like Dan Campbell told us too when he told the offense, but I figured they were going to go for 2. I was like, there's no way he's going to go to overtime, just because of having I know everything. The Lions didn't have as much to play for as Dallas did. Obviously, we know that much. So, it was at least very cool for them to. It was cool to see them execute at this high of a level, in a tough atmosphere after a day where they really just didn't execute like this for damn near the whole day, right, Meko?
Yeah. And there's a couple things with this play, Morgan, that I'm like really curious about because one, the reason Amon-Ra St. Brown is so wide open is basically like they catch Jordan Lewis, number 2, basically guessing in this moment, right? He doesn't know whether he should carry Khalif up the field or if he should stay put on Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that split second of hesitation gives Amon-Ra St. Brown the space and the room that he needs to be able to make this catch and dive for the end zone. The thing I also find interesting about it, though, is that even if Jordan Lewis had possibly guessed this right and went Amon-Ra St. Brown, I still think Jared Goff has enough time and enough accuracy to hit Khalif back corner to be able to get this touchdown either way.
Yeah, and I like this concept because it really is, it's a nice little zone beater because you're making, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, you're putting that defender in a quandary. So, and that's what Jared's looking at here. That's what Goff is looking at when he snaps it because, like you said, Lewis looks for just a second, and that's all Goff needs to go ahead and zip that thing in there. And you can see Lewis's, Detroit native, went to Cass Tech. You can see his reaction. He's like, "Oh man," and he throws his head back, but. Yeah, good execution. It was cool to see them. It was a good thing to see them execute in a hurry up offense because this was like a playoff atmosphere because it was a playoff game still for Dallas. So yeah, it was good to see them do this because they're going to have to do it inevitably in the playoffs. So
yeah, I was going to say this is one area where, again, the Lions have kind of struggled throughout the season in the red zone. So to see them have a play that, again, that doesn't require them just handing it off to Monty or just handing it off to Gibbs to get in the end zone. Like they actually had to really drop a really well-designed play, and players had to make plays as well to be able to get that touchdown. But whenever if you ever tell me that you're going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown in the red zone and he's going to have an opportunity to dive at the pylon, I'm going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown in that situation probably 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, good point. He is. He's just one of those, like, he's a dog, man. Like, when he gets the ball, like, he wants to score. I think he talked about it on his podcast a couple weeks ago. Excuse me. Where he, like, his rookie year, he got tackled inside the 5 a bunch of times. And or 2022, maybe, was it last year? So, yeah, awesome. I want them to focus on when they do have to throw the ball in the red zone, because it has been tough lately. Like, target Amon-Ra, get JMO moving, horizontally across the field and let him run away from people, because I do think they need to go about making it easier for Goff, because as we know, when you get in the red zone, those windows condense, right? Like those throwing windows. And I want those to be 6 points for the Lions and not a swing the other way for in terms of turnover. So yeah, I really do. Target your horses, target your thoroughbreds in those situations. Saint, Laporta, JMO's working his way to being that kind of target. Honestly, I really do think that he's going to start opening up.
Well, I was going to say, like, that's something that we can definitely, I really want to dive into that specifically in the offseason as we kind of do a look back on the season, because it's one thing because I think it's something that's synonymously said throughout the season of like, oh, once you get in the red zone, windows shrink and all things of that nature. I think that's all true. But then it's also somewhat confusing, Morgan, when you watch other teams like the Ravens or the Dolphins or whatever, and they're finding so much success in the red zone. And you're just like, okay, something doesn't look right. Like, how are other teams finding it so easy? And it's not like they have that much of greater talent. Like, it's not like we're talking about, Devontae Adams in the red zone or Justin Jefferson in the red zone. We're talking about, Zay Flowers or OBJ or, some of those guys, and even someone like Tyreek Hill, who isn't a big wide receiver, but more of a speedster, is still finding ways of getting touchdowns in the red zone.
Yeah, and I want to. It's tough it's like almost like coach speak to chalk it up to execution, like lack of execution. But I do think that's what it boils down to, because you go back to the last 2-point conversion against the Cowboys, and the concept was decent. And yeah, like, should the Lions have been throwing it to James Mitchell and with the game on the line? No, but in the red zone, the Cowboys probably went, and made it a point to take away the likes of St. Brown and Laporta. So, and to Goff's credit, Mitchell was open, but the ball just wasn't on the money. And that's where it has to be, like we just talked about. It has to be on the money in those situations, because everything is so condensed, everything's tighter, and as a result, it just makes everything more difficult for an offense. And that's why the red zone is such a harped on statistic, both offensively and defensively, right? Because it ends up mattering so much in terms of wins and losses.
Absolutely, man. So that's going to do it for this week's film study, guys. We hopefully gave you guys some more positive things to think about when looking back on this Cowboys game. Listen, yes, the 2-point conversion is going to be there. It's going to be something that probably is going to sting Lions fans for a while. But the best part is that they have a game this week. They have an opportunity to put that all behind them and pick up another win. And more importantly, like we said, these plays showcase that like a lot of these key players on this Lions team, Jameson Williams, Jared Goff, Aidan Hutchinson, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like these guys are rising to the challenge and are fully capable of helping to carry this team exactly where they want to be. So let us know in the comment section below what you guys are feeling, how you guys are feeling after the loss. Have you gotten over it? Do you have more positive memories than negative ones? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, be sure to check out pridedetroit.com, where you can check out all the latest articles over there. And you can check out Jeremy's very angry, sarcastic piece in regards to the latest replay that the NFL put out. But also be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and make sure that you're hitting that notification bell. Both of those things help out this channel immensely. It helps us get more, engagement, helps us get a little bit further reach out here on YouTube. And more importantly, it helps you guys stay notified of any time we upload new content or decide to go live here over here on YouTube. But with all that said, I'm Meko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. And we'll see you guys in the next one.